If you're in a relationship, that's one of the first questions we need to ask ourselves. If there's a problem in your business, that is one of the first questions we need to ask ourselves. What do I really want? And what are you currently doing? Is that in alignment with what you want? Thank you for joining me for another episode of Mindset Mastery. I'm your host, Araujo, and we are coming off a great weekend, right? Thanksgiving weekend. We got to spend a lot of time with our families and maybe spent a moment or two just appreciating what we have in life. And with that appreciation, there's always the flip side to that, right? Where we're caught up in our emotions, we're caught up on certain things, on how we should have done things differently, of how we should have handled it differently, or blaming someone else. I mean, there's always a flip side to a peak, right? There's always the valley. There's always when there's an up, there's a down, and vice versa. But before I get into my subject today, which is figure it out, I do want to preface my subject by telling you what went down this week. This past week, we made a decision a few months back that we were going to take a family trip during Thanksgiving. We were going to be completely disconnected from how we traditionally spend our Thanksgiving and decided to take a family trip, okay? And we decided to also, for the first time, use a travel agent. Like in my 43 years of life, I've never used a travel agent. I've always been the person, or Carla's been the person, of always doing our own research, right? Trying to figure out where we were going to stay at, the destination, what part of town of that destination. We would also figure out like the hotel, spending countless hours looking up the hotel and just figuring out, reading through all the comments, if it's a good one or a bad one, where it's located, and then booking the flight, checking with different airlines, who's going there nonstop, and all this other stuff, right? So it's always a chore. It's always a chore anytime we decided to take a vacation, so much so that it's not something we would look forward to, just because it came with so much resistance, right? And then, we've made the mistake many times where we thought we had the right location, where we thought we had the right hotel, only to be disappointed when we got there, either because of the location of the room or because we stayed at the wrong side of, wrong part of town, or the beach wasn't as clear, or the views weren't as clear, the amenities weren't so close. So we've been through that entire process, and the worst, and for me, it was like, I put so much stress on emphasizing and trying to get it right that oftentimes I got it wrong, So again, this was the first time that we used a travel agent, and it was very, very seamless. Like, she asked us a few questions of where we wanted to be, what we want to experience, and she narrowed it down to a couple destinations. It was just a matter of just choosing it, and everything else was taken care of for us. The reservation of hotel, even the location of the room. Like, we requested on the first floor. We wanted it to be able to go right into the beach. So we were very detailed about what we wanted, right? And it came to fruition. I mean, it was there exactly how we envisioned it. We were on the first floor. Our backyard was literally the ocean, the sandy beach. We were within walking distances to the two restaurants, or the three restaurants that are located in the hotel. I mean, it was perfect. We even had our own concierge, which was beautiful, right? Anytime we wanted something, we had a direct access to a concierge, and it was just awesome. We got out of the airplane. We went, we had like a Sprinter Mercedes van picking us up and taking us there. So it was like VIP service all the way around. And, it's funny because we were really excited. We were really excited about this. And we thought to ourselves, why haven't we done this all these times prior, right? It just saved us so much time, so much energy, and we just got to enjoy, what the vacation was truly about. But, as we were leaving, and our destination was Punta Mita in Mexico, and it was just absolutely beautiful. It's like in a cove type setting where you can see hills on opposite ends of where we were staying at. It was nice sandy beaches. We were able to do horseback ride and everything else. But before we got there, I always think about this every time we check in our bags, and about how sometimes we're so clouded, and we're so under siege of money, right? Under the siege of always thinking about how much it's going to cost. So much so that I've ruined, entire trips because I've been focusing on how much things would cost. And it would be something as little as like checking in a bag. And if you've flown lately, you understand that the price of checking in a bag has gone through the roof, okay? Especially if it's over a certain weight limit, right? If it's over 50 pounds, you're gonna get charged an additional $100, right? So I remember a while back, we were taking a trip, and our checked-in bag was like 2 or 3 pounds over, right? Over the limit, which would, at that time, I think it was only like $70. It's not even $100 like it is today. It was only like $70. And I remember I made such a big deal out of it. Like, she gave us an opportunity to like unload some things, okay? So even our carry-on baggage was already, full to the brim. Like, we can't fit anything else in there. But yet I thought that we can take out 2 pounds to save $70. So, one of the things that I realize now is that, if you get caught up on the little things, I have no chance with the bigger issues, right? Because that's really a small issue. Yes, I would like to save $70, but at what cost? I remember looking at Carla and thinking like, hey, like what else did you pack in here? Like if it was all her fault, right? Like if it was all her things, when in fact it was still my shoes, the girl stuff. But I remember that particular moment, I was like, okay, I decided to open up my baggage. So there's people waiting behind me. So now not only am I, causing a problem, but I'm also holding everybody else up behind the line. So we open up the baggage and we take a few things, we zip it back up, we put it back on the scale, still a pound and a half over. So I'm getting more frustrated, more irritated. And I never thought to think about, what I was looking like, right? Like this, it's not like I was broke. I could afford that. And yet I was already causing issues with a $70 charge, right? A $70 charge. And, I went through the whole thing and I don't think we were able to get it under. But I wasted time. I was flustered. I was blaming people. And then I got stuck on $70. And, it's really easy to get caught up in these little small moments, meaningless moments, where we can ruin entire things without really looking at the big picture. Kind of like, I don't know if you've been in this situation, and for you, if you're married, odds are you have been, right? Where you get into this fight and you both go your separate ways, or you're seething in the emotion, and then you start thinking about what you actually argued about and you can't figure it out, right? You're like upset with that person. You haven't talked to them all day. And then you start thinking about what did we actually start fighting about, and you can't, for the life of yourself, right, figure out what the fight was about. And I have an example of that. If you just hold on just a second, that happened during our trip as well. So we get caught up in these moments when it really doesn't mean anything at all. When really, it's just about moving forward and enjoying the moment. But it seems like there's always this little resistance that if we get caught up on them, it only like escalates to something bigger. So I remember that was a big lesson for me because I think I was really upset with Carla and she was upset with me the way I handled it. And I was like, man, I just made a complete fool of myself. And it really resonated with me when I saw a different person, all right, in that situation, about how big of a spectacle it really was. So here I am now, already gone through that version myself and causing just issues and problems. And I think we stopped talking the whole flight over. I mean, I caused a big mess. I embarrassed her. I embarrassed myself. I embarrassed everyone around me, right? My kids are even looking at me like, dude, it's just $70, right? And they don't even know the concept of money. But in this case, they were absolutely right. So I remember we were flying back. I think it was from Miami one year. And the same thing happened, but I was on the outside. I was the third party looking in. Right? I was from the outside looking in, and I saw this guy just completely have a complete meltdown for being charged $70. He blamed his wife, he blamed the airline, he blamed everyone. He opened up his luggage, pulling shit out, like carrying it, telling his wife to put it into her bag, and just a big spectacle. And I'm looking at him like, what a jackass, right? What a jackass. Like completely ruining everything maybe he did or didn't have on his trip with just a $70 hiccup. And I started thinking to myself, like, why am I getting caught up on the small things? At the end of the day, we need to get to our destination. At the end of the day, we brought all these things with us because we think we're going to use them. And there's a cost to certain things. But it shouldn't mean that we have a complete meltdown. At least in my case, I knew I shouldn't have a complete meltdown. And when I saw that from a third-party perspective, that's when I realized, man, what an idiot, right? What an idiot I was during those times. And I started looking at different things in my life. I started looking at how I caused so much friction to a point where it stops me from actually being productive because I'm caught up on the small little things. So, going up to the baggage this time around, we were well over the 50 pounds. I mean, I think we were like 65 pounds. And now it's just, okay, that's just part of traveling. That's a cost I know I have to pay. Even to this day, when we're only about 3 or 4 pounds, the attendant is always like encouraging us. Are you sure you don't want to pull a few things out? Carla and I just look at each other. We're like, no, we're not going to sit here trying to estimate what 4 pounds of of clothes or things we need to take out in the hopes of saving $70 or $100, whatever it may be. So now we just know that is a cost. But part of this is learning, right? Learning from our mistakes and learning what causes friction and trying to avoid those things so that we don't have to continue to battle the same, fights over and over and over again. The point of heading out of town is to be able to decompress, to be able to enjoy the family, to be able to enjoy certain things. But that was just one of the things that I realized I was doing to cause friction. And again, there's certain ways we can look at situations, all right? Even like this small argument Carla and I had when we were out at, in paradise. Like we were literally in paradise, okay? Again, we're surrounded by these hills. It's nice and green. It's like a jungle out there, right? The sand was nice and soft and the water was just perfect. Like it wasn't even cold. It was perfect. I would say it was like 70 degrees. It was just perfect water, soft sand. And again, like I just mentioned before, I don't know what happened, but I said something to trigger Carla. Carla said something to trigger me. Next thing you know, we're sitting in paradise, right, on these like beach chairs, lawn chairs, and we're not talking to each other. And immediately, I start going down this path of like trying to evidence about how wrong she is, about all the other times she ruined a trip, all the other times she acts like this, right? When in fact, there's always a flip side to that. All the other times I, said something or got triggered or didn't, respond the way I should have, or I was rude, disrespectful, all these things. Like I avoided thinking about all that and started thinking about all the things that she was doing wrong. And, as we're sitting there, I start thinking about, why we ended up in this place, right? Again, this is like our third day in. This was Friday. We had 3 days of just amazing experiences. We did like horseback riding on the beach. We did like, what is it called? The zip lines. We did zip lines in the jungle. We got we went to a beautiful restaurant. We just had a phenomenal time. We went through this little village in the horseback. We did all these great things. And here we are Friday, the following day. And for some reason, we're not getting along. So I walk up. So I grab my stuff off of the beach and I head to the room. And again, I start going into this whole place of, she's always doing this, she's always doing that. And I don't care. I'll just have fun by myself. I'll just, I'm not going to allow her to, interfere with my happiness. These are the stories, again, that are going on in my mind. And one of the things that I remember from this book, Crucial Conversations, is, anytime there's a disagreement or an obstacle, there's a few ways to be able to handle them. One way is you can try to avoid them, right? The other way is to face them and handle it poorly, which I've done many, many times, right? I wanted to get resolved, and I'm like, just trying to, have that conversation face to face, and I just make things worse. And then there's a third variation to this, which is we can face the obstacle, we can face the conversation or the argument or whatever, and handle it well. Handle it well. And with that, we often have to ask ourselves, very important questions. And this is something that has stuck with me for a very long time, up to this point, since the first time I read this book to now, about how to be able to handle, these conversations, these disagreements, these obstacles. Because in that place where I was already seething, all right, I'm in the hotel room. I left Carla by the beach. I'm in my hotel room, and I'm just seething, trying to evidence why I should be this way or I should feel this way. And again, I'm in paradise. And we've been married 18 years. So if you never run into this, I applaud you. But I know for the most part, all of us face this for one reason or another, right? And as I start thinking about how, this is another ruined moment, another ruined day, I start evidencing about how wrong she is, about, just blaming everything towards her. I had to stop myself. Because I knew this was only going to get worse and worse. And I can really make this to a point where I can ruin the rest of the 2 days we were going to be there. Okay? And this is where we need to stop ourselves in certain situations, because as small business owners, the reason why a lot of us fail to scale our businesses is because of the issues that are brought upon us outside of the business. That means family issues, marriage issues, relationships, sickness, health, all these other things, right? It typically is outside of the business. Because at the end of the day, in the business we're in, it's not that difficult. It's the things outside of the business that make the things inside the business difficult. So I had to really, really just stop myself, because I was going down the slippery slope and I was just getting more and more angry. And as a matter of fact, when I started thinking about what the argument was about, I was like, what were we arguing about? Right? It really was no big deal, but yet I decided to make it a big deal. But here's what I want you to start thinking about, and maybe something you need to write down, because I still find these questions so powerful in being able to overcome obstacles, to overcome like these issues that are handled poorly, because I was handling the issue poorly. First of all, I avoided the situation, and then I was handling it poorly, right? I decided to use the third option, which was face the issues and handle them well. But before I can get there, I need to get my mind right. I needed to make sure I can handle it well, not with seeding in resentment or seeding in frustration or anger. Like nothing's going to be resolved. In fact, I would have probably made the mistake of facing the issue and handling it poorly, right? If we haven't resolved the issue and calmed ourselves down and really analyzing the situation, we are going to handle the situation poorly. Like I remember so many times of trying to go out and trying to make amends with Carla, but because I was still holding on to certain emotions and thinking that she was wrong or whatever it was, I handled the whole situation poorly and made things worse. I'm in paradise. I'm there with my family, right? So what I decided to do, we started by asking myself a question. What do I really want for myself? Like, what do I really want for myself? I wanted to be happy at that particular moment. I wanted to enjoy myself the way I was enjoying myself the previous 3 days. I didn't want to be in the room not talking to my spouse. I didn't want my kids to know that Carla and I are not getting along for some reason. So the very first question you need to ask yourself is, what do I really want? Because at that moment, if I really wanted those things, I wasn't doing the right things to support that. I was doing the complete opposite. So if I asked myself, what do I really want? And then looked at what I was doing, it didn't align. In fact, it was contradicting of what I wanted. It was a complete contradiction to what I wanted. And sometimes we're caught in this place, right, where there's an obstacle in front of us or there's a disagreement, and we're doing completely the opposite of what we really want. In fact, we're going even further away by making things worse. If you're in a relationship, that's one of the first questions we need to ask ourselves. If there's a problem in your business, that is one of the first questions we need to ask ourselves. What do I really want? And what are you currently doing? Is that in alignment with what you want? I knew right away that it wasn't. So I asked myself, what do I really want? I want to enjoy my time there. I want to be happy. I want all these complete opposite emotions of what I was currently feeling. And then the second question is, what do you want for that other person? If you're in a marriage, what do you want for that other person? Well, I knew I wanted the same things that I wanted for myself, right? I wanted her to be happy. I wanted her to enjoy her time and not be caught up on the small argument we were, in. I couldn't think of why, as I was trying to plan for this mindset mastery, of what we actually got in a fight about, all right? And normally it's so stupid, right? It's ridiculous. It's nothing really, right? Third question, after you ask yourself, what do you want? What do you want for the other person? You start looking at the other person's perspective, right? Maybe there is some reasons why she got upset. Maybe as opposed to just blaming, I should start asking myself the questions of, what did I do in this situation? How did I contribute to us having a falling out? Maybe I didn't. Maybe I did speak to her a certain way. Maybe I didn't, whatever the argument was about, maybe I was rude. Maybe I was a little disrespectful. Maybe I was a little nonchalant about the process. Maybe I disregarded something that she said. So, after asking myself those questions, you ask yourselves a third question. And again, this is like really detailed in the book, Crucial Conversations. Okay, and this is just how I interpret it. The third one is, what do I really want for the both of us, right? Well, we went out there because we appreciate the hard work we've put into our business, our relationship. We've been together 18 years. We have 2 beautiful kids, right? They're enjoying. We don't have much time with them left. I mean, my daughter's 16 years old, and she's having a blast, and my 12-year-old's having a blast. And I know they can feel the tension when Carla and I are not on the same page. So I start thinking about all that, and it really gets me thinking, and it really starts breaking down all the frustrations and the resentment you may be feeling whenever you're in that place of just trying to blame the other person. It's about taking self-responsibility for what you contributed to that disagreement. And then when you start envisioning what you really want, you find out really quickly that how you're currently responding to those things is not in alignment with what it is that you truly want. And the fourth question to this is, how would I behave if I really wanted these results? And that's going back to making sure you're in alignment. Because when I really want something, I don't respond a certain way. I don't go to my room and shut myself down. I don't seethe in resentment. In fact, I show my love. I show my appreciation. So I went through this whole little cycle in the span of like 20 minutes. From extreme blame and frustration, borderline resentment, to like, fuck, man, what am I doing? Why am I in this place? This is not what I want. This is not what she wants. This is not what our family wants. So how would I behave if I really want these things? Well, I would show my love and appreciation. I would probably, so I decided after going to this, I left all those previous emotions out, like I left them out in the open. Like I left them exactly in that room. And I walked up and I went and talked to Carla, and she wanted the very same things I did. And after we had that conversation, it was like perfect again. But I could have stayed there. And that's the thing with, relationships and business. You can always just stay there, or you can figure it out. And our job is to figure things out, not to sit in resentment, not to punish ourselves for ruining certain things, making certain decisions, but to figuring it out. And I have to tell you, that Friday was like one of our best days. We stayed at the hotel. We were hanging out by the beach. We got inside. We had these boogie boards. We watched our daughters just play around. It was awesome. We had a great dinner, but it could have been the complete opposite. But when you really figure out what you really want for yourself, what you want for the other party, in this case, it was what do I want for Carla, and then what do I want for both of us, like you start finding out really quickly if what you're currently doing right now is in alignment with the things you actually want. And listen, it's so easy to blame. It's so easy to stay in that place or really, handle things poorly, when we all have an opportunity to handle them well. But in order to handle them well, you have to go through this self-analysis to make sure that you're going into the situation in power. And this holds true for business decisions. when things unravel. It's how to handle it properly, not how to handle it poorly by having a deal fall through and taking out your frustrations at home, avoiding your family, blaming, the title company or the mortgage company, burning your bridges. There's always an opportunity to handle things well. I got one more story that, that puts all this into perspective about just figuring things out. So come Saturday, we're flying back home. Okay, that's a couple days ago, Saturday. And again, we were already pampered by not having to make many decisions. Having to make many decisions. Our concierge figured a lot of stuff for us, transportation. Our travel agent figured a lot of that stuff for the activities and all sorts of stuff, right? There wasn't a lot to really think about. And I think I got a little too comfortable to a point where, I was looking at the return flight and what time we were supposed to get picked up from the hotel. And usually I'm that guy that wants to be at the airport 3 hours early, even for like domestic flights. Never mind international flights. Domestic flights, I want to make sure that I have enough time not to rush. I hate rushing towards, the checkpoints and then having to check in and going through the security check. And, I hate that stress. If I can avoid that stress, I'll make sure to get up early so that I can even find some time to stand in the coffee line and just take my sweet time. But for some reason on our flight back, I knew something was off. And in fact, they only gave us 2 hours. Like the transportation was supposed to pick us up at 12:30. Our flight leaves at 2:30. And the funny thing about that is, like, I knew that was off, but I didn't question it. I knew something, it didn't make sense because it was like 40 minutes just to get to the hotel from the airport. But for some reason, like, I just accepted it. And one of the things that, so we get picked up at 12:30, our flight's at 2:30. It takes us literally about 45 minutes to get there. And we're standing in line. When it's international, you have to, now with the COVID restrictions, you have to have like these tests done and they have to check your verify with your ID and then sign off on it. Then you have to stand on to check in your bags, get your air flights, and then go through security. So like this whole ordeal was going to take like an hour and a half. And I decided we go through that whole process and still I'm not worried about the time for some reason. So we're standing in line until about 30 minutes before our flight was supposed to take off. So I'm still in line. We're still in line. We haven't even got through the security checkpoint. And I came to the realization, hey, the plane's leaving in 30 minutes. So I asked some help from one of the attendants that was there and I said, hey, we're leaving in 30 minutes. He says, let me go talk to my supervisor. So he goes, talks to his supervisor, and the supervisor says, no, they're already loading. There's no chance. Well, 30 minutes is still a long time. There was plenty of chance, but for some reason, I just accepted it. I accepted it, right? I didn't make a big deal out of it. Neither did Carla. Until we got to finally the check-in counter, and we already knew we missed our flight. And she says, well, the next flight's at 4:30, but we only have one seat available. We do have room for you the next day at 4:45 in the afternoon. And I was like, damn. Okay. So that's our option, right? I was going to accept that. I was like, okay, well, we just have to stay another day. This sucks. Or we could try to figure this out because what did I want? I wanted to be home. What did my family want? They wanted to be home. So we decided to go check with another airline, and there was one. We went to Southwest. They didn't have anything. And so we ended up at Delta, and they do have a flight, but it was a connecting flight to California and then to Phoenix. So again, this was only supposed to be a 2 hour and 30-minute flight, right? If we would have made our flight, and I never miss flights, but we missed it this time. So now we have to go to Delta. And we leave at 4, so we have to spend 2 hours there, additional hours. And then we have to go to LA, kill another 2 hours, right? Go through that whole, through customs. We have to recheck our bag. Then we have to go from one terminal to the next. And it turns out that we won't get home till about 11:30 to 12 o'clock at night. So we're standing in Delta, and I had a choice to make, right? Especially when they gave us a price. It was like $4,300, 42 and some change or something like that. And I'm like, I'll just go ahead and wait. Like, that was my immediate thought, right? Thinking about the money, not exactly what I wanted. Because staying another night in Mexico wasn't something that I wanted. Our vacation was over, right? I didn't want that. I didn't want to walk right back out of the airport, find transportation, find a hotel, check into the hotel, kill time there, check out of the hotel, repack our stuff, and go back to the airport the following day. But yet that was my first thought because I always think money. Then I thought about, what do I want? What does my family want? And we made that decision. Now, I wanted to go back to the whole point of like getting caught up on money, right? If I can't handle a $70 deal, there's no way I could have been able to handle this. In fact, if I didn't learn from those previous experiences and watching that other dude just completely go ballistic, probably very similar to that I did when he had to pay the additional $70, there was no way I could have made a decision in power in this situation. And that's what life is all about, right? I mean, it's not about dwelling on certain things, but to be able to take those past experiences and make a better decision. I didn't want to spend the $4,300 that we had to spend. But I also didn't want to completely go against what I did want. I wanted to be home that night. My family wanted to be home that night. Now, the path to get there is very different, right? We all want beautiful things in our relationship. We all want a great business. But just because there's a restriction doesn't mean you can't get the end result. The end result for me was to sleep in my own bed, be at home, have my family safe. So we made that decision, and I can't tell you I was happy about it, but I was constantly checking myself. Like, it's not a big deal. And I'm glad to be in a position where I can do that and it doesn't debilitate me from moving forward. In fact, I probably won't even feel it. And I have to appreciate those things as opposed to getting sucked up in this vortex of just focusing on the money. When we all just tend to look at what we want, these other things are irrelevant. Not saying that it still stings thinking about it, especially now when we talked to our travel agent. She said they could have really forced the issue to get you on that plane. I mean, I could sit here very resentful, but I already made a decision. It doesn't change it. I purchased the tickets. So for me now to be very, negative and very sour about the situation is irrelevant. In fact, it's just going to take me down this path where I don't want to be. And understand when we make a decision, it's a learning experience. Just like I made a decision not to be held up anytime my luggage weighed over 70 pounds. This prepared me for a situation like this and ultimately get what we wanted out of the situation. Even though it cost me money, and according to our travel agent, we'll be able to recoup some of that. But now I am smarter because I was able to handle the small $70 thing. So when something bigger comes up, it's not a big deal. I always align it to what do I want? What do I want from my family? And how am I acting right now to align myself with what I want? And I got to tell you, not to say I didn't have to check myself a few times when I got caught up on the thought of it. I was very proud of the progression that I made. Because once again, I could have blamed Carla. Once again, I could have blamed the travel agent. Once again, I could blame the hotel. Or I could have made a decision towards the things that I want. And again, the things outside of our business are the things that are hindering the progression of our business. Because we get caught up on the small, meaningless things that don't really matter. And I got to tell you, I had so much appreciation yesterday because I was home. I woke up to my family. They're safe. Carla and I had a great day. I'm prepared here today because I didn't want to, stay an additional night, right, in a foreign country on the things that I didn't want. And I made a decision exactly where I wanted to be. And there's always a cost. But I am confident that me being in power will always be greater than the cost of just getting the things that I want. Always be greater. Or the cost of not doing the things that I want. And that's the way we got to look at these things. Because I could have ruined the whole trip. I could have ruined all the memories by being caught up on this cost. And that's what life is about, guys. So I'm going to wrap this up by saying this. Living like I'm reading this book by Will Smith, and it was so perfect because I happened to listen to a chapter where he talks about not dwelling and just figuring things out. So he says it in this book. It's called Will by Will Smith. It's actually very entertaining. I'm enjoying this book. I'm listening to the audio version. And he says, we often punish ourselves for not knowing or making decisions and then dwelling on them, right? Because I could easily make that decision and then dwell and blame everyone for spending that much money. But that's what life is all about. It's from not understanding to understanding, from going from confusion to clarity. Living is a journey from not knowing to knowing. See, we are born to figure things out. We are born to go after the things we truly want. But yet we tend to forget to ask ourselves that very simple question. What do I want? And as you face the obstacles in your business today, in your relationship, I need you to go back to that simple question because that will give you the clarity to make the right decision, to handle things well, as opposed to facing the issues and handling them wrong. Again, our job is finding the light in the dark. I can't focus on that additional unexpected cost. You can't focus on that deal falling through. You can't focus only on the appraisal not hitting its mark. You can't focus on your spouse not acting the way you want. The focus is, what do you want? And are your actions in alignment with what you want? It's a simple process. And as business owners, we have to face so many things that most don't. But being in power is a responsibility. Being in power is your responsibility. So again, ask yourself those very questions before you make things worse. And I got to tell you, this was the best family trip we ever taken. I got to tell you, we're in such a great place right now. And listen, I'll make up for the lost funds because I'm in a productive mode right now. I'm not in a resentful mode. I'm not dwelling on what I could have done or should have done. I'm moving forward. And when you move forward, you win. Guys, I want to thank you for joining me for this episode of Mindset Mastery. I hope you were able to take a tidbit of our conversation today and apply it to your own life. Guys, thanks again for joining me, and I will talk to you soon. Have a great day. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Badass Agents Podcast, brought to you by AZ & Associates and Do the Work Coaching and Consulting. You can watch this and other episodes by subscribing to our channel on YouTube or by visiting us directly at badassagents.com. And of course, you can listen to this episode and many others on your preferred podcast provider.